I'm not exactly proud of this, but I have a really bad habit of falling asleep with the TV on. Not because I'm watching something, most of the time it's muted or just playing some old infomercial in the background. I just need the light. Something about complete darkness messes with me. Makes me feel like I'm not alone. It started back in middle school when I had this recurring dream about a man standing in the hallway outside my room. He never came in, never said anything. He just stood there, facing my door. Sometimes I'd see the edge of his jacket through the crack under the door. Sometimes he'd whisper. I never remembered the words. My parents thought it was just regular night terrors, said I'd grow out of them. I didn't. But I did figure out that if there was enough noise and light, the man never showed up. So I kept the TV on. Every single night. Over time it became more than just a defense mechanism. It was like a comfort ritual. I could be in a hotel, a tent, wherever. If I had that glow and some background hum, I could sleep like a baby. Anyway, this particular night, the TV wasn't an option. It was a last-minute decision to crash at my cousin Will's place. He lives way out in the suburbs, in one of those neighborhoods that looks like it was cloned house by house. I hadn't seen him in a while, and we were both bored on a Friday night, so we just hung out playing video games until it got too late for me to drive back. Will's room is in the basement. It's finished, carpet, couch, a weird little fridge full of root beer and energy drinks, but it's still a basement. And that night, the cable was out. No worries, Will said, tossing me a blanket. You'll survive one night without your screens. I laughed and said I'd be fine, but I knew I wasn't. It was already past midnight. I was wired on sugar and caffeine and lying there in pitch darkness, just listening to the low hum of the mini fridge and the occasional pop of the heating pipes. That's when I noticed it. The silence wasn't really silent. There was this faint, almost imperceptible crackle in the room, like static. Like the sound an old radio makes when it's not tuned in. At first, I thought it was in my head. A memory. A leftover echo of something I used to fear. But then it moved. It's hard to explain, but the static wasn't just sound, it had weight. Direction. One moment it was behind the couch. The next, near the door. It wasn't loud enough to scare me, but it was specific. Targeted. Like it was scanning the room for something. And then, just before I finally drifted off, that split second between being awake and fully asleep, I thought I heard someone whisper. Not enough light. I woke up the next morning feeling like crap. You know that kind of sleep where your body's technically rested, but your brain feels like it's been dragging a loaded cart through mud all night? That was me. My mouth was dry. My neck hurt from the awkward angle I'd passed out in. And there was this weird lingering pressure in my ears, like I'd been wearing headphones for hours, but hadn't. Will was already up, upstairs probably, judging by the faint smell of waffles and the sound of a spatula clinking against the frying pan. His parents had gone on some weekend trip to the mountains, some anniversary getaway, which meant we had the whole house to ourselves. Their house was the kind of place you don't expect weird stuff to happen in. Beige walls, framed pictures of ski trips, decorative pillows on every surface. Even the basement, which had no windows and low ceilings, felt too safe. Too suburban. That's part of what made what happened later feel so wrong. Like seeing a clown standing in your kitchen at 3 a.m. It doesn't fit, so your brain scrambles to explain it. I didn't mention the static thing to Will over breakfast. I figured it was just my brain playing tricks on me because I was sleeping without light for once. He was in a good mood, talking about maybe going to the skate park later or catching a late movie. I didn't want to kill the vibe. We hung out most of the day, just two teenage guys doing nothing important. Burgers for lunch. Endless YouTube. He even beat me 3 rounds in a row on a game I usually crush him at. It was that kind of day. The kind where nothing serious should happen. By evening, We were back downstairs, half watching a horror movie on his phone propped up on the arm of the couch. The Wi-Fi was spotty in the basement, so the video kept buffering every few minutes. At one point, Will got up to grab snacks, and I just sat there in the dim glow of his old floor lamp, scrolling through my messages. That's when I saw it. Just above the bar at the top of the screen, the little indicator that shows nearby Bluetooth devices, something new had popped up. Echo_box_1. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe Will had gotten a new speaker or something. But when I tapped on it to see more details, the device type didn't say speaker or headphones. It said unknown. No manufacturer name. No connection history. Nothing. And then, without any prompt, my phone glitched, just for a second. The screen flickered white and black like an old CRT TV losing signal. By the time Will came back downstairs, it was gone. And so was the static. For now. That night, I made sure the floor lamp stayed on. Will was already out cold by the time I brushed my teeth and crawled back under the blanket on the couch. He'd left his phone on the armrest, screen still glowing softly with the paused horror movie. It felt like a scene frozen in time, too still, too quiet. I opened a podcast on my phone, something dumb and comforting. Paranormal call-ins or whatever. I wasn't really listening, I just needed the background noise. I turned the volume low, leaned back, and tried to forget about the weird Bluetooth thing from earlier. But the second I started drifting off, the static came back. At first, it was so faint I thought it might be part of the podcast. But then the host's voice cut out completely, like someone had hit mute, and all I could hear was the crackle. The same sharp, shifting buzz I'd heard the night before, but louder now. More defined. Then it shifted. The static began to pulse. Not randomly, rhythmically. Like breathing. I tried to open my eyes, but something was wrong. My body wouldn't respond. Sleep paralysis? Maybe. But this wasn't the heavy, locked-in feeling people talk about. It was like being submerged, like I was underwater and slowly sinking. My ears popped. My vision pulsed with this greenish haze. I couldn't move, but I could hear something. Something whispering, buried in the static. Repeating the same thing over and over. Come find me. Then the basement changed. I don't know how else to say it. One second I was lying on Will's couch, and the next I was standing in the middle of the basement, but it wasn't his basement anymore. The floor was warped, like water had seeped into the wood for decades. The walls were darker, softer, and rippling slightly, like fabric instead of drywall. Everything felt warped, like I was inside a stretched-out memory of the room rather than the real thing. The floor lamp was still there, but its bulb was flickering like a candle about to go out. I heard something behind me, not a footstep exactly, more like a click, then another. Like someone tapping metal on the floor, slowly getting closer. And then, just at the edge of my vision, something moved. A shape, tall and thin, just outside the reach of the flickering light. It didn't come closer. It just stood there, and I swear, it was watching me. And as I tried to scream or move or blink, I heard the voice again, this time louder, more insistent. Come. Find. Me. That's when the light snapped off. And I woke up gasping. The basement was dark. My phone was dead. The floor lamp was unplugged. And Will wasn't on the couch anymore. The first thing I did was check the time. 3:47 a.m. That gray zone of the night where everything feels wrong, too late to be night, too early to be morning. I sat up fast, disoriented and cold, like I'd been dropped back into my body from a great height. The couch cushion beside me was still warm, but Will was gone. I looked around the basement. The light was off. The floor lamp's cord was yanked clean from the wall. Not just unplugged, yanked. The socket panel it had been plugged into was now hanging loose, drywall cracked around the edge. A slow unease settled in. I called out, trying not to sound nervous. "Will?" Nothing. I grabbed my phone to use the flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. Dead. Totally dead. I swore under my breath and stumbled toward the stairs, half expecting him to jump out and scare me. Classic Will, the kind of guy who once rigged his bedroom with fishing line and rubber spiders just to prank a friend who hated bugs. But something felt different this time. There was this noise, low and mechanical, like a speaker stuck on a single distorted syllable. A stretched out hum that wasn't coming from anywhere specific but seemed to fill the house like fog. I stepped carefully up the carpeted stairs and cracked open the basement door. The rest of the house was dark, but not silent. That same distorted hum was louder now, not static, exactly, but like static that had learned how to groan. I followed it down the hallway, passing framed photos I'd seen a dozen times before, skiing, graduations, a weird Halloween picture with Will as a skeleton. But they all looked off. The photos were faded. Some were reversed in the frame, like someone had flipped the images backwards. I turned the corner and saw it. A thin, pale blue light was coming from Will's bedroom. The door was half closed. I stepped closer. The hum was definitely coming from inside. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to go in, to turn around, to run. But I had to know. I pushed the door open. And there, in the center of the room, was Will, standing completely still, facing the wall. His phone was floating mid-air in front of him. Just floating, like held up by invisible strings. On the screen, a waveform was pulsing, glowing with that same pale blue light. The Bluetooth icon was on. Echo_box_1, connected. I called out to him, shouted, even, but he didn't react. Then the waveform stopped. Everything froze. And I heard a voice, not in the room, but inside my head, as clear as if someone was whispering from behind my eyes. He heard me. Now you do, too. I don't remember making the decision to move, I just did. 1 second I was frozen in the doorway, and the next I was rushing into the room, grabbing Will by the shoulders and trying to shake him out of whatever trance he was in. Will. Snap out of it, man, wake up. His skin was ice cold. Not just cool, unnaturally cold, like he'd been standing in a freezer. For a second, he blinked. His eyes flicked to mine. And then, he screamed. Not a normal scream. Not fear or pain. It was distorted, like his vocal cords were being pulled through an amplifier stuck on maximum distortion. His whole body convulsed, and the phone in front of him exploded in a burst of static and sparks, knocking both of us backward. I hit the dresser. He collapsed to the floor, twitching. For a second, everything went black. Then I heard it. From the hallway, footsteps. Not running. Not rushing. Just steady. Click. 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 Like hard-soled shoes on tile, even though the floor was carpet. I scrambled to the doorway and slammed it shut, locking it, a flimsy little twist lock that felt like a joke against what was coming. Will was still breathing, thank God, but he wasn't moving. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. I turned to the closet, yanked it open, and dragged out a golf club from behind his dad's old bowling bag. It was the best I could do. I backed up against the far wall and waited. The doorknob turned. Once. Slowly. Then stopped. A pause. Then, without warning, the boom, the entire door shook like it had been hit by a battering ram. I screamed and held the club tighter, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. Another impact. The door splintered at the edge. The humming was louder now, no longer ambient, but coming from just outside the room. The kind of sound that makes your ears feel like they're bleeding from the inside. Then a hand slid through the crack. Pale. Too long. Fingers like antennae. It wrapped around the edge of the door and began to pull. I didn't wait. I charged. I don't remember hitting it. I don't even remember if it had a face. I just remember the feeling, like swinging through smoke that was also bone. Like hitting something that wasn't fully here. The impact threw me back across the room. The door slammed shut, and the light went out. When I opened my eyes, the sun was up. Light streamed in through the blinds, soft and golden, completely ordinary. Birds were chirping outside. I was still on the floor of Will's bedroom, my back against the wall, clutching the bent golf club like it was a lifeline. Will was in bed. Asleep. No signs of injury. No phone. No static. Just sleeping like nothing had ever happened. I sat up slowly, expecting pain, bruises, anything to confirm the night hadn't been some horrible dream stitched together by my paranoia. But there was nothing, no damage to the door, no burn marks from the phone, no blood, no trace of the thing that tried to come through. Except for one thing. The Bluetooth menu on my phone, now working again, still listed echo_box_1. It was marked available. I didn't tell Will what happened right away. When he woke up, he was dazed, said he had a weird headache and some crazy dreams he couldn't quite remember. I nodded like I understood. Like that explained everything. But I didn't mention the scream, or the phone, or the hand that came through the door. How could I? We left the house a couple hours later. His parents came back that afternoon, and everything went back to normal, on the surface. But the static hasn't stopped. Not entirely. Some nights, not every night, but often enough, I hear it again. Sometimes from my laptop speaker when nothing's playing. Sometimes in the silence between TV commercials. Sometimes when everything's off and I'm lying in bed alone. It's faint, but it's there. And every time, just beneath the surface of the noise, I hear a voice. Come find me. I haven't listened yet, but I know one day I will. And next time, I don't think Will or I will be coming back.